so much stuff floating around. I don't know. People trying to say they wasn't together.
Basically was trying to get into a threesome. What's going on, ladies and gents? Welcome to another exciting experience known as K and Manny. I am the one they call Manny. She is the lady of all Ks. And we are continuing in our Till Death Do Us Part series, where we actually talk about all you lovely married couples out there and how to keep y'all sanity. Okay?
Right. So today, specifically, we're going to be talking about identity. And identity is so important to the marriage. You know, this is part of the reason why the person was attracted to you. And this is the reason why you became one as in the union. But today, specifically, we want to talk about how to maintain and keep that identity in the marriage, because I would like to also introduce my special guest, Miss Treal Ravenel. I hope I didn't butcher it.
Treal Ravenel. It's okay.
Thank you, Treal, for the correction. I wanted to say is that from the first part of the show, you know, we're going to speak from a woman perspective about identity, but I also wanted to tackle that I feel a lot of women, like in the beginning of the relationship, like maybe within the 3 to 5 year mark, we tend to lose ourselves a tad. And I think we lose ourselves a little bit more faster than the men. Treal, why do you think that is?
Oh my goodness. Well, thanks, Camila and Manny, for just having me. I am so honored to be here with you. And you all are walking down the lane that I tend to walk down when I talk about marriage relationships. So here's what I want to start out by saying as it relates to identity. First and foremost, if we are unsure of our own identity prior to getting into the marriage relationships, that can be problematic, right? The word of God tells us that in Genesis 1:26, that we were created in the image and in the likeness of God. So if we don't have that concept down packed in the beginning, right? When we get into marriage relationship, it only gets worse at that point. A lot of women get into certain marital relationships and connect with certain people, certain men. We're talking about the women right now. They connect with certain men because of different reasons, right? A lot of times because they are struggling in their identity, because they've had different traumatic experiences. They call them adverse childhood experiences that have not been addressed or have not been worked through. They tend to be connected to someone else that may have experienced something similar. So not only is that woman dealing with an identity crisis, but so is that man. So the two they come together, not necessarily coming together as one, but one broken vessel. So you come into the marriage blind and broken, and then you experience bewilderment because the marriage is not aligned and going the way that you thought it should go. So a lot of things we have to do, Camila and Manny, is go back to the beginning, go back to the genesis of our lives and figure out, why am I experiencing these things in my marriage relationship? Why am I unhappy, right? Why do I feel unsatisfied? Why do I feel worried? Why do I feel unloved, unappreciated? You know, most times as human beings, we have an innate ability to want to blame and point the finger because we don't want to blame ourselves, because that's shame, that's guilt, that's embarrassment, right? So we look at external things to blame as a result of what's going on in our marriage relationships and also what's going on in our life. So to answer the question, when you talk about identity, you first have to understand who gave you your identity. Right? What is your identity? What does that look like? And then how can I then go into that marriage relationship with this unsaid or unspoken identity? I do want to say something else as related to identity. Not just on the spiritual side do we get our identity, but also on the natural side. So that goes back to a relationship with parents, caregivers, guardians, or whoever, you know, was responsible for your upbringing and your leading. If you were confused in that moment, right, it's something called identity versus role confusion. If you were confused in that moment when you were between the ages of 5 and 10, you didn't understand who you were not affirmed by your father or your mother or by others that were around you. You had a mistaken identity. At that point, you also grow up and have that same identity crisis. Yes, You may be 40 years old and have an amazing job and appear to have an amazing life, but we haven't dealt with the issues of the soul, your mindset, your behavior, and your emotions. So we have to deal with that as well. So there's a spiritual attack that relates to who you are, and there's also a natural component that relates to who you are, and that's where we get our identity. Long story short.
No, that was excellent, and I love that. So just you said a mouthful, but just one area that I wanted to hear you was like people come in already, I'm gonna say it, a hot mess, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to me, I think it's very important for you to deal with yourself before you even say, I want to even consider marriage. Because what a lot of people think, and I made this mistake too, I got in a relationship thinking, oh, as time goes on, I can do this together. And also too, I can fix him. That's another thing. We think we can fix one another, but like you said, it really takes you true self to sit there and evaluate and say, well, you know what, what's that? What's wrong with that? And to be honest, 9 times out of 10, everything stems from the root of your childhood. You have not dealt with the incidents or whatever you went through, so you bring that into your adulthood, and then you walk around maybe feeling sorry for yourself, or maybe sometimes you get into a depression, and then people can't understand, well, what's going on? Mm-hmm. And again, I'm saying all of this because we bring all of this into the marriage thinking, oh, once I get married, it would change. And to be honest, 9 times out of 10, it gets worse, because now you and your spouse is clashing because you're not on one page, because you still don't know who you are and whose you are. You don't even know who you belong to.
Right. Absolutely. And that's the thing with marriage. It's true when they talk about, you hear people talking about daddy-daughter issues with the daddy-daughter, right? And I'm going to say that, of course, because again, we're talking about women, the women that have not experienced a great relationship with their father. They did not have that father to affirm, to love, to nurture, and do the things and cultivate that relationship. They tend to then look for their fathers. You ever heard someone say, well, I married my dad, or I married someone that has, components of my father. A lot of times they're looking for that father in that man. And guess what? That man that is broken and has some probably mommy or daddy issues himself, he's looking for that female that in a sense he can father, if you would. So we have to be very careful, as you said, in dealing with or addressing at least the adverse childhood experiences and the traumatic events. And traumatic events is your father wasn't there.
Right.
Traumatic events is your mother, she was there, but she worked all the time and left you in charge of your other siblings. So we have to be able to look at those things and be able to make that correlation. Many people, they're just on a GP, they're not able to make that sense of correlation as it relates to my marriage is broken. I grew up in a broken home. People are not thinking that. They're feeling like, oh, I made it out, right? I went to school. I got my PhD. I'm living large and in charge. My life is good. I made it out. Yes, you physically made it out. But there is a mental, emotional component to you not making it out. So you escaped it by way of physicality, but you did not escape it as it relates to your mentality and your emotional well-being. So we got to deal with that. And to help you not make those poor relational decisions. I believe that you can work through anything in marriage, but if you don't have the intel as to what you're dealing with and what you're working with, you don't know what to work through. Right? You're going in blind. You're going in, with the unknown. And when you go in with the unknown, you don't know what to apply to your situation. You're just thinking about certain things. Oh, I can pray. Oh, I can do this. But you need to understand that there is a strategy for everything. And as relates to marriage relationship, there's a strategy for your marriage to work out. So, yeah.
Manny, what's your thoughts?
My thoughts, I'm just taking it in as we speak, because, a lot of times men tend to have their own mindset when it comes to marriage and when it comes to having their own identity. And sometimes I feel like men, they have their identity, but they don't know how to distribute it to their wives, because at the same time, their identity could be, oh, that's how we met. Or their identity could be, you're still out there. Like, for example, I know a couple who they met in a club, they got married. However, one tends to go out a lot. At the beginning of the relationship, one tends to go out a lot, and the other one tends to stay behind or stay home. And sometimes that could pose a question or pose a problem to both partners. Even though you go out, have fun with your boys, or go out, have fun with your friends, but at the same time, that thought process in the back saying, okay, what are you doing out there with your boys? What do y'all say to that?
You know what, Mandy? You're in my head because my next flow was going to say, how can we maintain ourselves? How can we be true to our authentic self? I'm gonna let you start, Trail. I'm gonna let you answer that question.
Okay, well, Manny made a good point as far as what I want to touch on. What you said, Manny, you said your spouse or whoever going out and you're thinking in your mind, you know, what that person is doing. Yes, that has to do with identity. However, I believe that also has to do with trust, right? So the trust factors are the lack thereof for you to even think of that. And I go back, and that goes back to, you know, how they met in the club. Not that I'm saying anything is wrong with that, but was that other person, one or both were in other relationships at that time? And was that relationship, is that relationship as a result of some infidelity or unfaithfulness, you know, or is that in their past unfaithfulness or infidelity? That goes back to identity, right? Mm-hmm. That's still part of who I was or even a part of who I am. And I'm still acting in that role, or I'm trying to, or I've been delivered, if you would, or I've been able to get out of that role, but I don't know how to totally disconnect the effects, because that goes back to the physical disconnection. Although I left, or although, you know, I'm no longer in that lifestyle, if you would, there are still effects that happen that we have to deal with, right? So that's what I would say to that. There's still the effects of anything that happens. There's still the effect of that thing that you still have to confront and you still have to work through.
Absolutely. And I was going to say, for me, one of the things that I thought about on how to maintain and keep my identity, and I think a lot of women and men is about to, kind of resonate what I'm going to say. So a lot of times men, when they feel like when they meet you, you know, you dress nice, you look nice, she played the part, or she got me, right? So the mentality is, oh, she got me. Why is she still dressing that way, right? So I have to say this to the men.
And really? I haven't experienced that.
Yeah, some people do.
I would have thought that.
Yeah. So okay. I said, let me address that. I have to say this. If you are a woman who feels secure about herself and your confidence is through the roof, you want to make sure you look presentable. So yes, you're going to continue to wear nice stuff. So what? I went to Walmart in my flower dress and my makeup on and my hair done. What you want me to look like? Because don't make me go back to the bonnet thing, because I'm not going to go there. But again, I'm looking presentable. And then sometimes, like I said, your partner have an issue with it. But like you say, Trail, I think that has to do with, you know, their own insecurities.
Absolutely.
Because they're lacking in certain areas. So because they're lacking in certain areas, they're wondering what you're doing. So it's like, where's the trust factor? Your trust factor is going back from your ex-girlfriend who cheated on you. And now you bring that on me because I'm a person that feel confident within myself. And this is my identity. My identity is I'm going to keep dressing this part because I feel good about me. And I'm not changing myself for you, because there is, the boundaries of how I'm going to say how I look, because I'm not disrespecting my vows. I'm staying true to my vows, but I'm feeling confident within myself.
Absolutely. Can I speak to that security right quick, Manny and Camila? And Manny, I wanted to address this to you because she said that, a lot of men, so I'm going to challenge you, feel as if, okay, why is she still dressing like this? I mean, I can speak from my own personal experience. My husband loves me to dress up, like play dress up. You get what I'm saying? To look great, right? He loves that. And that goes, you said it right on the head, Camila, that goes to his insecurities. So if he's insecure in who he is, and I know you're going to touch on this, Manny, as far as the man identity, because there is a thing, he's struggling in his identity. He's struggling, and identity is also connected to purpose. So he's not only struggling in his identity, but he's struggling in his purpose. So when he sees you excelling, if you would, because I see this a lot with couples that I counsel, they get married and they're both on the same page, right? At some point, the woman, more than men, just to be honest with you, the men, they're out there making the money and they're the provider, the protector, and they're making sure they're working every day. But the woman is doing that, and she's working on her spiritual development, and she's working on her personal growth and development, and she's trying to deal with the issues of her past. It's just what it is, right? So she's excelling And she's able to be more confident because she's excelling, because her identity is now evolving, if you would, right? She is becoming, as Michelle Obama likes to say, she's becoming who she is, and she's realizing that, and she's feeling good about herself. She's feeling good about her body. So when she goes out, she's looking nice, she's feeling nice, but he doesn't understand that. He looks at it as a threat. Not only a threat, right, not only a threat to the marriage relationship, but a threat to his identity and his purpose, because he has not figured it out. So, Manny, what you got to say about that? And I'm bashing my man because I love my man. I'm just for a woman. But what do you have to say about that?
Well, that's a very good question, because a lot of times what I see, at 39 years old, a lot of times we get mistaken as we don't like that. Now, I'll be honest with you, and I'm speaking for myself. I like it if she maintains her own identity. However, I feel like sometimes what men do and women do, it clashes when it comes to their own identity, because they haven't established who they are before they came into it. Like, they realize who they are in the marriage, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, you never did that, or
right.
like, why are you doing that? You never did that before. Because I know for a fact that I know another couple who's, well, at one point the guy was doing everything and the woman was staying in the background. Fast forward, the woman is now up front and the guy's staying in the background. Now, I'm not saying their marriage was in turmoil. I'm not saying that they had problems. I'm not saying anything. I'm saying the roles have switched. And I see that a lot sometimes, and some men cannot handle that.
And you know what,
That's
Manny,
good,
I'm going to piggyback off of you. We're going to touch base now because I wanted to get into evolving and boundaries, because that's where that's heading. And I want to say that's very common. It's so true that when they say sometimes your spouse can rub off on you, sometimes when you out there and you're running the street, you're like, you know what? I had enough. I'm ready to mellow down. Or, vice versa. You'd be like, you know what? I don't want to be in the house. What am I doing in the house? Let me get out. And, it's sometimes when you're doing that, it's a struggle for that person. But before we get there, I just wanted to piggyback off, like, you being your true authentic self and then your spouse having an issue with it, because I experienced it. So I just want to real quick share my experience.
Mm-hmm.
I have an experience too. So go ahead.
Sure. So one point, this is within my marriage, and I was going to school and I was doing a lot of other things too. I just had all these multiple hats. So, we got to be Wonder Woman sometimes. And he felt some type of way. He was like, you're going out, you're in school, but you don't pay no attention to me. And I said, well, shouldn't you be proud of me going to school, trying to better myself? That was my thought. And I'm like, well, what's wrong with you? And I kind of like stepped back a little bit and I observed, well, his day-to-day looks like he goes to work, he comes home and he's just chilling in front of the TV. That wasn't my MO. So he's looking at me like I'm coming to chill. I can't chill because I still got to cook. I still got to clean. I still got to help the child with the homework. And, and then I got to probably do my own homework. So what's wrong with you? Maybe you should adjust your eyes and see, well, she's carrying all this stuff. Maybe I can help in some areas, because if I did, maybe I wouldn't feel so insecure. That was my perspective, because I really think, but anyway, that marriage dissolved. But long story short, I just found like we wasn't clicking because I wanted to accomplish certain things. And I really felt, honestly, he was jealous of the situation. And I'm like, I can't have that because I love me first. So it happens like that. Sometimes you shouldn't even be in that marriage. And then based on the foundation of it, I'm just going to leave it like that. But that was just my perspective and something that I went through. And I know there's a lot of women out there that can relate, but you have to make a decision on what you want to do when you're in that circumstance.
That growth simultaneously is important. I know, Manny, you said you had a perspective, but I just want to say this real quickly. That's why that growth simultaneously is very important. I don't know what level you or your husband were at that time or the inception of that marriage, but marriage reveals. Right. Marriage reveals sins. Mm-hmm. Marriage reveals who you are. Marriage reveals who you're becoming. And a lot of times we don't even know. right? Yeah, you can say, oh, I want to own a business, or I want to be this and I want to be that, but you really don't know the stages of that life cycle. You don't know how all that stuff is going to play out. So as you're trying to figure it out, right, you're growing and maturing. I believe your spouse should do the same, but that
Right.
also goes back to, you know, his baseline personality, you know, or her baseline personality. Do they even have potential to do certain things or to be certain things? They may not be there yet, but that's looking at the potential in the person, the growth level in that person, you know, prior to marriage, to see if this person will be able to rise with me. And I can just speak really quickly, you know, about me and my husband. I met my husband, he was 22 years old. At 22 years old, he was building building a business and building this great life for himself at 22 years old.
Nice.
What that told me, right, is that this man has a vision. This man knows what he wants. He's going after it. I saw how hard he worked. I saw how he treated his family, how important family was to him. So I saw different things. And I believe as individuals, we need to do a better job of looking at the different aspects of people's lives before we get into this lifelong marital relationship, because how he or she was is how he or she will become. They only evolve from the place they're at. So we have to, you know, and that takes us, you know, having some level of identity to know, okay, this is what I want. This is what I doesn't want. Yeah, he may be good in the bed, but he's not good for life. You know, we have to be able to make those distinctions and saying, okay, if I marry this person, this is how my life is probably going to turn out. Granted, sickness and all that stuff can happen, but you understand that the person has a strong will. They have a strong mindset. They have, you know, great work ethics. Those things we need to begin to look at before we get into that marriage relationship.
I love that. Now, what was you going to say, Manny?
Well, I was going to say something along the line of boundaries, because a lot of times men and women do things outside. I don't want to say I do outside of their marriage, but just do outside or within themselves in the marriage. Meaning, one would like to go hiking and they do that, and the other one likes to do something completely different. Now, I'm not saying which one is better, which one is worse. Here's an example that I pose, and I also want to get both y'all's takes on this. Okay, say for example, like, okay, I smoke cigars. Let's call it what it is. Here's the issue. A guy goes out, smokes cigars, even if he's by himself versus being with someone or being with another group of guys. They come home, they literally smell like the cigar bar they came in. But my partner hates the smell and hates the fact that I come home, every time I go there, I come home smelling like cigars or smelling like an ashtray. But that's something you want to do to just kind of step outside and kind of decompress, or say, you know, clear your head amongst a lot of things. What do y'all say to that person when they want to do something that defines them, but necessarily poses a threat to the other? Meaning,
I'm going to answer that first. So, Manny, I'm happy you brought that up. So what you're saying is, this is how he gets off. This is how he, you know, feel relaxed. Okay, so I would have to respect that. That's how he decomposes. I may not like it, but what I will like, if he's going to go out and he's going to do that, when you come home, sir, please go put your clothes in the washing machine. Sir, please go take a shower and brush your teeth and wash your hair, because before you step into that bedroom, you want to make sure that you're decent. And being decent is that, you know, you're taking her feelings and thoughts into consideration, because once you step into the bedroom space, you done gave her like, he done took his clothes off, he done took a shower, he done brushed his teeth. Thank you, baby, for considering me. That's how I will feel in that situation. What about you, Treal?
Man, that's good. You know, oh God, I have so many thoughts, and I hope my mouth doesn't go faster than my head here. Here's the thing. We have to respect the other person's way of relaxing, like you said, decomposing, and respect their life, especially if that's something that they've done beforehand. Granted, it does not bring detriment. It may bring discomfort, but discomfort does not mean that it brings detriment or is going to dismantle the marriage. It's about perspective as the other partner, both being understanding. Well, you know what? Why does this even bother me so much? Is it because I wish I could be that way? I wish I can be like Manny and be able to go out and hang out with my friends. And you normally have an introvert and extrovert type couple. And, the introvert may secretly have feelings of not jealousy, but I don't know the word I'm looking for, envy. May kind of envy their partner being able to have this thing that they do, and they haven't found their thing, right? They haven't found their thing, or their thing is sitting home and reading a book, and they kind of, on OGP, really wish that they could go out and hang out with their friends and stuff like that. So you have to first discover, why does this really bother me? Is it really about the cigars? Is it really about him having a drink after work? Is it really about him, or her going to happy hour? What is it really about, right? So once we figure out what it's really about, and if it's something that you need to really work through, and not necessarily that your partner needs to work through because they're living their best life and they're not hurting the marriage relationship or the relationship period. There's nothing that they're doing that's hurting it. It's making you feel uncomfortable, but it's not hurting it. So we have to look at that. And then to your point, Camila, if you are doing something, smoking cigars, drinking, or whatever you're doing, or just whatever, and you want your spouse to be more considerate, when you come in the house, make sure you're, composed and decent and things of that nature. Or by the time you get into bed, then that's another story. But I want to challenge that, because why do I have to completely, disrupt my routine because you're uncomfortable? Is that fear? We have to ask these questions. Is that fear? Is that fear like FAIR? Is that reasonable? Do I have an unrealistic expectation? I met him in the cigar bar, or her, when I was out with my friends, I saw them there or wherever, and it was okay then. So why isn't it okay now? So a lot of these expectations that we have for our partners, and this is something I talk about in my programs and also when I counsel couples, because, accept them for who they are. There's something called freedom, being free to be you in the marriage. When you start restricting your partner and putting all of these guidelines and rules in place, I get boundaries, but boundaries and rules and regulations and policies are totally different things. So we have to make sure that boundaries that we're enforcing, that they're fair, and that the expectations that we have, that they're realistic, they're reasonable, and they're not created, established, or presented as a result of our own insecurities, as a result of our own discomfort feelings that we have. So that's what I would say about that.
I love that. I love how you brought up the part about unrealistic expectations. I believe that's the cause of a lot of issues in a lot of marriages and also a lot of relationships, because we expect that person to do X, Y, and Z. But, instead of you expecting, why don't you bring it to the table? Because I'm the person, I love to bring things to the table. Now, please believe me, I didn't learn that, because the way I learned stuff was like, I just demanded, and I just be like, that's not how you want to get things done. But again, I had to learn this. And I think when a lot of people start learning how to do things different, they can expect different results because of your approach. So it's all about the approach. Just have that conversation with your partner. And I love this today. But we are definitely running out of time. And I want to ask Manny, what are your closing thoughts?
Mo, my closing thoughts to fellas is understand who you are before you jump into a relationship. Because a lot of times we tend to, how can I put this? We tend to define who we are within the relationship, and then we're not willing to compromise. The problem is we need to understand who we are before we end up, and then understand that, granted, you may not be that same person, just maybe a component of it, but then you also have to understand when you're in a relationship, you still have to keep that component, but not to the extent, at the expense of the relationship.
Thank you. And Treal, what are your closing remarks?
My closing remarks would be give room for growth. Allow that space and grace for your partner to grow. We know that we're evolving. So who you married may not be who you were 5 years ago. What worked 5 years ago for us may not work now. So a couple has to be willing to come to the table often and have those discussions. try not to wait until you see things change. Try to get ahead of it, because marriage relationships are going to go through transitional period. You're going to go through the transitional period of the honeymoon phase, if you would. 3 years later, now we're in a different place and we're having children. Then, partner may get sick. There's so many things that are going to happen within that marriage relationship. So we have to come together and be able to talk about those things, preferably beforehand, so we can have a plan in place of how we're going to deal with them. And then the last thing I would like to leave is never stop growing, along the lines of what Manny said. Never stop growing as an individual person. We were made to be relationally. That means your partner cannot give you everything that you need or you want. And most times they do not want to. They're not built like that. They have a limited capacity. So you have to establish other outside healthy relationships to help you to grow and evolve, and also access other resources and tools to help you grow and evolve as a person. So you can be better, not only for yourself, but for those people that are around you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Trell. And my closing remark is piggybacking off of you. I honestly believe it is best to be equipped. We're not going to know everything, but it's so awesome to be equipped. That's why I'm a firm believer on premarital counseling before you step foot into marriage. And I believe that when you're going through certain challenges in the relationship, it is best to also still continue to seek counseling, because some people thoughts is, well, we got marriage counseling before we got into marriage. Why do we need it now? And I'm going to say this to you. You need it now because you hit a different hindsight of your relationship. So now you need an expert to come in and say, hey, let me just give you some guidance. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I can give you some guidance on maybe how you guys can fix it, because it's up to the two, because everybody's relationship is different. Mm-hmm. So those are my closing remarks. Trell, I want to thank you so much. From Women Who Wins, correct? The CEO of Women Who Wins.
Wives Who Win. Wives Who Win.
Yes. Thank you so much. And if the audience wants to reach out to you, how can they find you?
Absolutely. All social media platforms. You can find me at Treal Ravenel, TrealRavenel, our Wives Who Win. Just put it in Google, put it in social media, and you'll find me.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Manny?
All right, y'all. So we want you to let y'all know that you can also watch us, Kate and Manny, on 3 special platforms: Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure when you if you see us on YouTube, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. You see us on Instagram, make sure you hit the heart, hit the comments, and share our comments and share our content. And then if you see us on Facebook, run those likes up. Make sure you comment and make sure you share that as well. We want your opinions. We want your thoughts. Either if you agree with us or disagree with us, we want to hear that as well.
Thank you. Awesome. And you can also visit our website at www.ladykeenterprisesinc.com. Everyone, you enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you next Saturday at 11 a.m.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Lady K.